Today we are talking about the top 10 things we have learned from running a multimodal upskilling program. So we ran this upskilling program a couple of months back, and we have run multimodal classes, of course, before, but not an upskilling program. And this taught us a few things because it's long running, and while you're running multiple courses over a couple of months, it's just not one course. So there are a lot of flow pieces involved, and we had run this program before in a regular mode of like virtual ILT, synchronous, but things that came in when we ran it as a multimodal program were different. And that's what I want to share here in this presentation. So how does a multimodal program look like? That's probably the first thing of interest. So a multimodal program, the biggest change most of the time is that lecture portion is shortened quite a bit and is actually replaced by curation of videos. So rather than having a full-fledged lecture, the attendees are actually presented a curated set of videos from whatever e-learning library the company purchased. So may that be Pluralsight, may that be Udemy. In this case, it was Pluralsight. So what we did as preparation for the program is we curated a bunch of videos from Pluralsight that mapped directly to the material that we traditionally provided or presented as an instructor-led training. Instructor was still around and did hold regular sessions, but those weren't to go through every piece of the lecture. It was more to reinforce the most critical concepts, to answer questions, and providing a synchronous checkpoint to ensure the students actually have watched the videos. So they had a point where everybody synced, everybody was following through at a similar pace, at least at the same checkpoints. So at the beginning of the program, we curate videos, and then we create an agenda that aligns the videos with labs and projects. So this is a piece we do up front, and the videos at that point go to the LMS. So as the students go to the videos, we can track that they have actually completed the portions that they are supposed to complete. If you have any questions during the presentation, please put it in the questions tab and I will answer them as I go, or put it in the chat. I have both of those open, so I can keep an eye on any questions or anything that you have. So the delivery mode, a typical delivery would be Monday and Tuesday. The attending is watching videos, they're doing labs, and then at the end of Tuesday, they attend an office hours with the instructors. So possibly it's a 2-hour office hour session that they're attending. And then at Wednesday and Thursday, they follow to the same rhythm. Watch video, do labs, attend office hours with the instructor. Now, it depends, the amount of content that we can cover in a given week depends on how much time that has been allocated by the organization for their employees. So a typical 10% to 50% of the work hours are dedicated to this. In this program, 50% of the work hours were dedicated, and the attendees spend that time watching videos, doing labs, and then spending time with the instructor. What we learned from this program is that if we leave the students for a day and a half without any support, many a times they cannot finish the labs and they are discouraged to come to the instructor session because they haven't finished the labs. And we fixed that problem by providing some office hours with the lab support person on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we ended up with 4 components: watch videos, do labs, attend office hours with lab support during the day and a half, and attend office hours with the instructor at the end of the second day. If you have any questions, please, I'm going to unmute, or try to unmute everybody. Okay, so you can unmute yourself whenever you want at this point. I have enabled that and ask questions. Okay, so also notice that typically these programs have projects, because that's the only way we can find out if they have actually done the, actually they have done, the knowledge that they gathered. They can actually go back to their desk and actually do the work that they were supposed to do. So all of these programs have projects, and the projects are meant to ensure that the managers actually see the folks performing the task that they'll be doing when they're back. And we also maintain a cloud-based environment for the whole program, so the attendees can anytime, evenings, weekends, whenever they feel like they can do some work, they can come to the environment and perform that. There's always a discussion group created, and so that the attendees can discuss things among them. The instructor can post stuff, answer questions, and the log is kept as we go. Awesome. Typical interactions in the multimodal program. At the very beginning, when it's basically is being conceptualized, the WebEdge development team works with the SMEs from the client side to establish the curriculum. So we discuss the outlines, we come up with the whole program, we go back and forth and come back with a sign-off from the SMEs on the client side. Then WebEdge development team gets to work. We of course have a whole library that we can pull from. We work through this and we provide a package that consists of the project, curated videos, an agenda that aligns the videos to the labs, etc. Sometimes a facilitator guide, and also assessments. It's a long program, 6-7 week long. We want to know how people are progressing. So we typically would be doing assessments, at the 1/3 point of the program and 2/3 point of the program. And also we do a pre-test at the beginning of the program and a post-test at the end of the program. So all these pieces come together. So we'll create this package and provide that to the WebEdge instructors, and sometimes to the client faculty that joins in with us to deliver the program. Now, also in the back end, some more work goes in. The organization, the company is providing many a times a faculty manager, and the job of the faculty manager is to set up the learning path with the videos in the LMS. The faculty manager also initiates the cloud. They will, let us know that the program is coming up. We'll be creating the cloud where the students actually perform labs. As I mentioned before, setting up the learning path on the LMS does 2 things. One, a repetitive way to use this for future programs, and the second, to track the attendees that they are actually going to the videos. There is also a moderator typically provided from the client side who kicks off and helps the faculty with the session. Many a times we're using the application that the client is using, may that be GoToMeeting, may that be Microsoft Teams, may that be WebEx. So they will, the client will provide a moderator who will kick off the program or kick off the sessions. Sometimes the client also has a community manager who works with the attendees, probing them with, ask more questions in the channel. Did you get your answers, etc. Many a times we play the role of the community manager. So altogether, the instructor is delivering the program, the students are performing labs, watching videos that are delineated in the LMS, um, and they have a cloud set up, and that's kind of the rhythm. Any questions, any thoughts? Okay. So a specific multimodal program, how does that look like? I'll start with the complete schematic that shows how the program goes from beginning to end. So this program is a 3-week program if you did it contiguously. And the week 1, week 2, and week 3 are laid out here. As you notice, we start with the pre-test and end with the post-test. And there's a knowledge test and project review at the end of first week and at the end of second week. So the program at this point, this one is for a data engineering program. So we start with on AWS. So we start with AWS and big data fundamentals. We talk about data engineering here, then introduction to Python, data analytics on AWS, and then automating the analytics process, and then the company technology stack overview. When we convert that to a program that's running virtually or running multimodal, the dynamics changes. So as the pretest is still there, the week 1 quiz is still there, the post-test is still there, but it's now spread across 6 weeks. As I mentioned, you notice that there is VILT instructor hours on Tuesday and Thursday to ensure the students got what they studied in the videos, answer questions, and also lay out what's coming. So the students typically are studying on Monday and Tuesday mornings, Monday whole day, Tuesday mornings. They are finding their time, while they're working, they will carve out some time where they can deliver this, and they do the videos. They actually have lab support hours, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central. We found that a lot of times the students were actually coming to the lab support hours while the instructor is there or the lab support person is there, and do the labs there, so they have some support if they get stuck. But some of the people did it by themselves. So they will do that on Monday and Wednesday, and then Tuesday and Thursday, they actually have the instructor hours. So this pattern followed for 6 weeks actually, as they went through the program. Notice there are project days where they're actually doing projects to showcase what they have learned, and the projects actually reflect what they will do when they go back to work. So what did we learn as we went through this program? The top 10 things we learned from doing this program. First thing was we learned quite a bit of best practices for setting up the program. We realized that this is, and we did that for this program already. We ran the program as an ILT before. The advantage of that was that there is a lot of flow issues when you create a whole program because you're combining courses together. And running it as an ILT allows you to work through all the flow issues before you hand it off to a program where people are working kind of at their own time. There is no instructor present when they're learning for a lot of the portion of the program. So it's beneficial to run it as an ILT if you can, to work out all the problems. So we strongly suggest that we run the first run as an ILT. The second best practice we learned is that even though we walk the programs, walk the students through orientation script, at the very beginning, at the kickoff of the program, we have an orientation script. And there, we actually talk them through all the pieces. This is where you'll be logging in. Here is the Zoom session or Teams session that will be alive for the next 6 weeks. That's where you always come from your session. We do all that. But still, we found that the first week, there were a lot of confusion because they were just getting into the rhythm. So what we did at that point is we started hand-holding the students a lot more. And we all agreed that'll be better if we do the first week more as a synchronous instructor-led training, because that way the students actually have somebody when they're going through the videos, when they are doing the labs. Probably 90% of the questions the students had were ironed out in the first week. So I think that would be very, very useful. And next time we run it as a multimodal session, we will be walking the students, through that. And the first week, we will make it more synchronous, have the instructor present pretty much all the time. The third thing, and that we have been doing for a lot of the programs we're already running, but is worth stressing, is to have a one-stop shop repository for all materials and all communications. Because notice the students are actually working during these weeks. So they already have a whole bunch of emails flooding their inbox. The last thing they want to do is try to find our emails for the program and find where the material is, where Zoom is. So having a one-stop shop repository, and that can be set up, we typically set it up in our own repository that we have created. And we basically create an instance of that where you have all the documentation they need. We have all the communication that's needed, the whole schedule, the chat, everything is in one place. So they can just come there whenever they are in the mode of working on the program, and everything is right there. And they can ask questions, etc., to the instructors right there also. The other best practice we learned is try to keep the students on one machine for the labs. Even though there are 5 or 6 courses that are running, keeping them on one machine is very useful. That way they know they have only one place to go. Like many a times, as I'm saying, they come from work and they're jumping into this and they don't want to think so much. They want to get going. And having one machine connection that they know that they save, they just click on that, they get going. It's a little bit of work from our side to take all the environment for the 5 or 6 different courses and put them on one machine. And we ended up with 2 machines actually end of the day. But our goal was to get to one machine. So they don't have to jump back and forth. They ended up with 2 machines, and that was kept for the whole program because one of them was Linux and one was Windows. We couldn't mix it, but we kept those 2 machines going for the whole program. And the other best practice is to keep one Zoom session for the whole program. So they are not, again, looking for where to go to join the program. So one Zoom session, if you can, one machine for the whole thing to keep consistency. The other thing that we learned is that as much as all our labs are tested, we found that once we let them do it by themselves with the instructor not being there, the smallest things where they ask the instructor about, this little thing, that became a big thing because there was nobody there. This was, of course, before we put the lab support person. That helped quite a bit. But what we learned is that even if they're waiting for the whole day, they're unhappy because, this thing shouldn't be, blocking me for the day. I asked a question, I'm stuck. After 3 hours or 2 hours, somebody answers in the chat. That's not enough. So we started testing the labs again. And this time with, of course, the boulders have been moved. There are no big problems, but the pebbles had to be moved at this point. We had to make sure that every little problem was addressed in the lab guide, that they couldn't trip on anything because they are working themselves. So we had to do a next level of testing in our labs to ensure that they don't trip at all. And I think once we learned that in the first week, the next 5 weeks, there were barely any issues that we heard. And that's how we proved that the process worked. So the next thing was best practices for coordination with L&D. In the first week, as they had trouble, we were sometimes sending out emails. Sometimes the L&D was sending out emails. And we quickly realized that we need to speak with the same voice if possible, like, work together more closely than, in a regular program because the instructor is not present. So we started a daily stand-up call with L&D at lunchtime for 10 minutes. That's all it took. We talked through what's coming tomorrow, what's coming next week. Is there anything that the students need to be communicated to, and who is going to make the communication happen? And, again, after the first week, the next 5 weeks, there were barely anywhere where we had to communicate outside that 10 minutes. So that worked out very, very well. The experience was great from the client's point of view. Best practices for running the program. There were 4 more best practices we learned for running the program. The first best practice, as I have mentioned a couple of times, is along with the instructor checkpoint session, which is happening on Tuesday and Thursday, we also needed to have lab support because we couldn't leave them for a day and a half on just chat because they couldn't always explain the problem very well. The problem they faced wasn't the real problem. There was, other than that, there was a root cause of the problem. And putting a lab support person for 2 hours on the days we weren't doing instructor sessions helped immensely. And many of the folks actually came to the session and they actually did the labs while the lab support person was there. The other things we learned here is it's important to track lecture and lab progress. The students are left to themselves. As much as they're coming to the instructor session, we had to make sure that they have done the lectures, that is gone through the videos, and they have done the labs. And we did this via, for the labs, we put together a Google Sheet where we actually tracked, we emailed the students, our project manager emailed the students and found out where they are and populated that the L&D group could look at to ensure all the labs are being done. And we could ensure that nobody is falling behind. If they are, we took preventative measures at that time. And on the lecture side, once you have the LMS learning path put together, you can find out if they have done the lecture. And that way you can tell, who is falling behind again. And this is important because that way what part of the group is moving forward, in sync, and who is falling behind, and what kind of support we can provide. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to not leave anybody behind. So this is another best practice we learned. The third thing we learned in terms of running the program is the evaluation needed to be different from an ILT. We had to ask them, were the videos doing the job? Did we curate the right videos? Are you learning enough to be able to go tackle the labs? We had to ask them, how well is this format working? Are you getting enough instructor time? Are you getting enough lab support time? That kind of question had to get in there. So we had to change the evaluation from the ILT. And the last thing is, of course, always true, is collect student feedback as often as possible without inundating them, and then tweak the program in real time based on that feedback. So we used midweek evaluation. We used end of phase evaluation. We divide the program into 3 phases. At the end of every phase, we had quiz and we had evaluations. And sometimes, like towards the beginning of the program, we did some daily evals at the end of the first day. And at the beginning of every phase, we did a daily eval because the phase started and we wanted to find out quickly if there's anything that we are doing that needs to be changed or fixed And they were quick, 7 or 8 questions, yes, no questions. So we collected student feedback as often as possible without inundating them. We are very careful that we weren't asking them, too many times, how are we doing, what to fix, because there's a fatigue that sets in. We didn't want that. So these were the 10 best practices that we collected over, over the program. Any questions, any thoughts from anybody? You can unmute yourself if you want. I opened it up. Okay. All right, and the last thing I wanted to show you are sample slides from the program report. And we do this type of reporting for any program we run because programs kind of, of course we have evaluation at the end of every class, but programs kind of are different. So we put together some other ways of measuring. This is the first, dashboard that we typically provide. Notice in this case, we had 15 participants, 37 net promoter score. Net promoter score is calculated by taking the number of people that have given us 9 and 10, subtracting from that people that have given, below 8 probably. So anything above 0 is typically considered good. 37, 30 plus is always very solid NPS. The learning gain of 68 shows 68% learning from where they started. So that's another thing that we measure by pre-test and post-test. Overall instructor rating for the 6-week program was 4.4, and the course material and labs rating with 4.3 out of 5. And this is another thing that we typically show is that the students, the pre-test score was 59 and post-test score was 87, showing the 68% learning gain. So this is another measure that we provide. And the last one is skill before and skills gained. So every week we measure where did they start and where did they end. So this is reported by the students themselves. They felt coming into first week, they knew 2.4 and they came out with 3.7 out of 5. And same for the second week, they came in, they thought knowing 1.4 and left with a 4, which is a huge learning gain. And then the second week, they came in knowing 1.7 and left with 3.7. And the fourth week, they came in knowing 1.8 and left with 3.8. So these are the little glimpses of the report that we typically provide. And there is, of course, more things we measure through the program and report and work with L&D hand in hand. Wonderful. Thank you for your time. Have a great afternoon. Take care. Bye.